Good morning to all our viewers. It's a brand new day, and of course, it's a Friday. Friday, wrapping up the week, very eventful week for our coverage and, of course, activities. Friday, September 25th, 2020, we're looking at the political activities in the country, and today it's around inclusive politics in Nigeria. To all our viewers, saying a big apology for joining you a bit late. Just slight technical issues, but we're always on top of it as a brand leading on the online TV space. Now let's get on to our conversation for today. What do we have? We'll first look at the Nigeria Labour Congress, Trade Union Congress deadlock with the federal government. They have been trying to discuss and meet to avert a nationwide strike which the major trade unions are planning next week. And we'll be looking at President Muhammadu Buhari's speech at the United Nations General Assembly Special Session on Finance and Accountability. And also Women in Politics, they're planning a conversation. We want to look into that conversation as we look at inclusivity in the country. And of course, there are the indications of some stability now in Mali, who are Nigeria's neighbors in the sub-region of West Africa. And also, Edo 2020 election has come and gone with Governor Godwin Obaseki winning a second term. But what are the lessons from that election that ties into inclusive politics in Nigeria? Just stay on for this session. Let's begin with the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, who had a meeting yesterday with the federal government. But prior to this meeting, the National Industrial Court provided a restraining order striking any attempt to go on industrial action from Monday next week. That being putting that aside, the NLC and the TUC has stated after the meeting yesterday that it was a deadlock as both parties did not agree to any of the terms set before the meeting. Now, you can remember that following the hike in electricity tariffs and fuel pump price, the government and labor unions had met penultimate Tuesday, but the dialogue ended in a deadlock following the failure of governments to reverse the price increase or offer palliatives to cushion the effect on the workers. The NLC and TUC subsequently declared a strike and protest scheduled to commence next week, Monday. And both unions said they would collaborate to execute the industrial action for maximum effect. But rising from the meeting on Tuesday this week, the National Executive Council of the Nigerian Labour Congress, comprising the chairpersons of all 36 states chapters, endorsed the decision earlier taken by the Central Working Committee of the Congress on the strike last week, Wednesday. The National Industrial Court, in its action yesterday, issued an interim order restraining that unions from going on strike. Justice Ibrahim Galadima issued that interim order following ex parte application filed by a group, the Peace and Unity Ambassadors Association of Nigeria, through their counsel, Sanusi Musa. Justice Galadima ordered the labor unions, their officers and affiliate groups to halt the plan to embark on the strike pending the hearing and the termination of the motion on notice filed by the applicant. The judge also granted an order of interim injunction restraining the unions from disrupting, restraining, picketing, or even preventing workers or ordinary Nigerians from accessing their offices to carry out their legitimate duties on September 28, 2020, or any other date. The court also granted an order compelling the Inspector General of Police and the Director General, Department of State's Security Service to provide protection for workers engaged in their legitimate duties from any form of harassment, intimidation, and bullying by the officers, agents, or privies of the unions, pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice. Those who obtained order, not the employees, that's the Nigerian Labour Congress said so. Reacting to that court injunction, NLC President Comrade Ayuba Waba dismissed the court injunction, saying he had not been served and has not seen it, adding that the group had filed the suit was not even under its coverage in terms of employees. He even said, how does that injunction affect us? And if we are not served, if we were served, definitely we'll respond. And what relationship does he have with such group? The meeting between the federal government and the organized labor meant to avert that planned strike did not end as expected. It started at 4:16 p.m. at the Presidential Villa Banquet Hall in Abuja and dragged on till 9:22 p.m. yesterday. But without a resolution. Speaking to journalists after the dialogue yesterday, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, said the parties had a fruitful discussion, adding that it was shifted now till Monday to conclude the discussions. He expressed the belief that the unions would heed the government's plea to suspend their planned strike. But however, the Trade Union Congress President, Quadri Olaleye, told journalists that the mobilization of workers for the strike would not be halted, noting that the government failed to reverse or suspend the fuel price hike and electricity tariff adjustment. He also stated, "We were not the one that adjourned the meeting. The government adjourned it till Monday. Monday's expiration of the ultimatum, and we're still very much focused on that. It's a deadlock for now. Of course, we'll not stop the action that has been put in place. We have told them to reverse or to suspend while the discussion goes on Monday." So the organized labor is left with no option but to go that way. When asked about the offers or concessions made by the government's team, the TUC leader said, "We are coming with an open mind to find a solution to the problems in the country, especially on the price hike. They have made their proposal, but we are saying let us suspend or reverse. Then we can now continue to discuss, but they have adjourned. Labour will continue the mobilization of workers," the TUC president said. So the basic things here are that the organized labor has put it to the government, suspend the actions taken in reviewing the premium motor spirit price and of course the adjustment in the electricity price. Then we can have a very fruitful conversation. Then we can have a negotiation and agree on something. But so far the federal government hasn't indicated that they will take that action. So Monday, 28th September will be a very critical day for Nigeria, as both the federal government and the organized labor will meet again to discuss, negotiate, and hopefully agree. But where there's no agreement, we face an industrial action that will have adverse effect on the economy, shutting down activities, even with the injunction by the National Industrial Court. Well, all eyes will be on Monday when that meeting, scheduled meeting holds again. Now let's go on to the next conversation. The United Nations General Assembly has been holding an annual assembly for over 7 decades now. It has been holding and has been looking carefully at how it can continue to build global stability and peace. This is an opportunity for global leaders, heads of governments to come in and pitch ideas, speak on what they are doing, reforms, and also synergize efforts to ensure that the global community continues to achieve development. President Muhammadu Buhari also is part of this, and at this special session, he made his compelling need to strengthen international cooperation in the global efforts to curtail the menace of illicit financial flows, as current international mechanisms are not strong enough to address the menace. Everyone knows that President Muhammadu Buhari currently is the champion when it comes to anti-corruption on the African Union, and one of his standpoints has been addressing the issue of corruption. Vice President Professor Yemi Osibanjo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, represented the president delivering his remarks. The forum was discussing financial accountability, transparency, and integrity. FACTI, it was a panel video conference organized on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. The session also featured the presentations by the immediate past presidents of the United Nations General Assembly, Professor Tijani Mohamed Bande and Ambassador Mona Jewel of the Economic and Security Council, ECOSOC. According to the president, the current international mechanisms for asset recovery are not good enough, as can be seen in the amount lost to illicit financial flows and the length of time taken before the repatriation of just a small fraction is made. The FACTI panel report, according to the president, can play an important role in bridging the expectations of source and destination countries, as well as in harmonizing the process of asset recovery and return. Speaking on the approach to promote equity and help achieve economic growth, President Buhari, speaking to the vice president, said, "We agree with the panel on the importance of having a balanced approach that reflects the situation in different regions and the priorities of different stakeholders." He said, "I believe that for the global aspiration to recover better from the impact of pandemics and to yield any inclusive results, we must comprehensively address existing structures that make it impossible for countries to generate and retain a sizable chunk of their resources. The success of the FACTI panel's final report will be measured by the clarity of its recommendation in support of global governance reforms, the President said. Justifying the call for an urgent overhaul of the global system, President Buhari, speaking to Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, said evidence suggests that the contemporary international tax system uses a taxing rights regime that is not fit for purpose, as it makes combating tax abuses, especially by multinational corporations, difficult for most developing countries. According to him, it is my hope that the final report of FACTI panel would introduce proposals that would lead towards a fairer international tax regime. The President said he hoped that the report will contain proposals that will address the continuing advocacy for country-by-country reporting, open disclosure and automatic exchange of information on beneficial ownership, as well as eliminate financial secrecy, jurisdictions and tax havens that facilitate base erosion and profit sharing. On the issue of profit sharing and harmful tax competition and the taxation of digital economy, he believed it should also receive adequate attention and focus in the report of the panel. Emphasizing the point about the dangers posed by the illicit financial flows and how the panel's work can be useful, the President said the problem will be the best addressed internationally. In his words, FACTI panel's report should assess how effectively we are meeting our commitment to combating the scourge and strengthening cooperation in dispute settlement and peer learning, particularly in assets, recovery, and return. The event brought together FACTI panel chairs and high-level representatives from member states, which was convened to present the interim report of FACTI, which identified the major gaps in the implementation of the existing international framework for tax cooperation, anti-corruption, and anti-money laundering. Other leaders who spoke at the forum include Prime Minister of Norway, Erna Solberg, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Ahmed Khan Niazi, former President of Lithuania and FACTI panel co-chair, Dalia Grybauskaitė, and Ibrahim Mayaki, former Prime Minister of Niger and FACTI panel co-chair. Definitely, there has to be global cooperation in addressing the issues of tax cooperation, corruption, and of course, illicit financial flows and anti-money laundering. We talked about inclusive politics, and if there's any way we can demonstrate that in Nigeria, is in the proportion of women that are active and in elective positions in the country. That is how we know if women are indeed integrated into the activities of politics. So far, that is not really the case. And this is why women in business and management and public service, WIMBIs, are scheduled to hold an annual Women in Politics dialogue tomorrow, Saturday, September 26, 2020. It underscores the fact that the female population of Nigeria stands at 103 million, which is 49.4% of the current total population of Nigeria. In the 9th Assembly, of the 469 members elected across the 6 geopolitical zones, 6 are women. That is a very huge, disproportionate composition. They only constitute 6.5% of the Senate and 5.6% of the House of Representatives. This shows a huge drop of 1.48% of female representation in comparison to the 8th Assembly. And this has been the narrative since our return to the Fourth Republic in Nigeria. At the State Assembly level, across the 36 states of the Federation, women constitute 5.2% of the elected lawmakers. So in all, 51 women out of 990. After 2 decades of uninterrupted democratic governance since 1999, only 6 women have emerged as deputy governors. It is 2020 and Nigeria is still yet to produce a female governor and I even dare say a Senate president and even a president in the country. The national average of the 6.7% female representation in elective and appointive positions is far below the global average of 22.5%, the Africa regional average of 23.4%, and the West African sub-regional average of 15%. These statistics are cringeworthy. They are indicative of an environment that stifles almost 50% of its population and is a clear representation of the poor showing of women in the political sphere. Consequently, the clamor for increased representation of women in elective and appointive positions of power is at an all-time high, and the reasons are same. Like I've said, inclusion and representation matters. This is why the Women in Politics WIMPO 2020 dialogue is challenging the inertia, inactions, fears, and inequality that has held women back in politics by convening women and men who are willing to be resolute about making the call in solidarity for women all over Nigeria to get off the sideline and take informed actions to ensure positive outcome in the 2023 elections and beyond. WIMPO 2020 is inviting women to hone and own their own voice, run for office, and actively support credible women who are running for office. This is a very touching analysis. Aside from the fact that we don't have a female governor in the country elected, we're even far from achieving the first female president of Nigeria. Of course, developed democracies and climes like the US also is still attempting to make that move. But of course, there is in the Democratic Party in the US, Senator Kamala Harris, who is the running mate of Senator Joe Biden. So that means if Democrats were to win this 2020 elections, Senator Kamala Harris will be a vice president and female, helping to increase women participation in politics in the US. But for the women, it's a big challenge. And the last part of that conversation is very critical. Beyond tomorrow's conversation via webinar, it is very important that the women in the urban areas connect with the rural areas where we have strong women in the grassroots who they can engage, mobilize to continue to push for participation, deeper participation in politics. Women have a lot to offer, and I can say that countries across the globe, one of the leading financial analysts and economists in Nigeria said it with very, very interesting stats, that countries where women are leading are doing very well. For example, Germany, Norway, Finland, amongst others. And so that shows that women have a lot to offer and they must be valued, encouraged, and the space created for them to be involved in political activities. Just a snapshot that today the Malian president will be sworn in, interim president, just to bring some stability to what is happening in Mali. It has been a concern. The military took over and they had to be a lot of negotiations. Thanks to our former president, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, special envoy, has been there to ensure that things are stabilized. So they've agreed to have an interim president, and his name is Ba Ndor. He's a former defense minister and was picked by the coup leader, Colonel Assimi Goita. He will head a transitional government until elections are held. And this is one of the big headways so far in the situation in Mali. The new government is expected to be in office for a transition period of 18 months that will lead to an election. The appointment of a civilian president was a condition for the West African Economic Regional Group ECOWAS to lift sanctions it imposed after the coup. And this is a good way because Mali is marking its independence anniversary, and it wouldn't be nice if it's still in a limbo. But we're seeing some headway in terms of its political space. Stock of goods are running low in the capital, Bamako, where businesses are hoping for an announcement from ECOWAS after the inauguration. West African leaders have indicated they might lift the sanctions that have been imposed following last month's coup. That's the good one. And we are hoping that stability comes in that regard. Let's move on as we ramp up today and for the week. It's been an eventful week, but some positives in Nigeria's political space. Edo State, yes, Edo State had its elections last week. We all monitored it, followed it, and at the end, we had a victor in Governor Godwin Obaseki, winning a second term under the platform of the People's Democratic Party, defeating his main opponent, Pastor Osage Ize Iyamu. There are a lot of lessons that we can take, but quickly, let's look at some of them, very few ones. The first is that, indeed, the international community are taking Nigerians' electoral process seriously, while we always emphasize the need for no interference, even as the US would not like Russia, China, or any other country to interfere in elections. We welcome all efforts taken by the US and UK to ensure that those who are involved in violence, rigging of elections, and all that face punitive measures. We also commend the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for improvised ways of conducting the election and deploying more of technology to upload results and create that opportunity for people to see, analyze, and also make conclusions, and also what was announced and what was projected eventually was what happened because of the transparency brought into the process by INEC. For the presidency, the statesmanship of President Muhammadu Buhari to ensure that there was no interference in the whole process, that is expected of the president, and he did that, and that's a kudos to him. The Edo people must be commended here, their resilience, their political activism, even though the percentage for population was about 25%. But those that came out showed resilience, vigilance in ensuring that their votes made impact in the elections. And for Governor Godwin Obaseki, in the words of President Muhammadu Buhari, being magnanimous in victory was important for him. It was a historic moment as he made history winning as a governor in two different parties since our Fourth Republic in 1999, and also returning the South-South to now become a full People's Democratic Party belt. So the South-South is fully a People's Democratic Party zone. All governors are from the PDP, and that has happened. It took a while. It was the norm in 1999 to 2003. It was the norm in 2003 to 2007, but we started seeing those shifts from the period of 2011 and 2015. And so, eventful things, but very clear that Nigeria's politics has a lot of prospects to drive inclusivity. And one way we can achieve that is a credible electoral process. And this is why we implore the president to review the electoral acts and look at signing it so that it can boost inclusive politics in Nigeria. We also call for a strong judiciary, which is independent. Its funding and every activity should be independent to guarantee justice where required. And also value and respect for the media, who are the watchdogs of activities in the country and the political space, that are not intimidated, harassed, or brutalized for carrying out their job. And the civil society groups, that their role is respected and they continue to engage and carry out advocacy as expected. And to all Nigerian citizens, you cannot be left out of the activities anymore. Participate, 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 engage. And there's a big example, the big brother. The young people have engaged and involved. Translate that energy to politics. Thank you very much, and that'll be all for this edition of Economy and Politics Show. You can send your views and comments to news@proshenji.com, and also we'll be there to receive them and respond appropriately. Visit our website, www.proshenji.com, to watch our videos, read our news reports, and analysis. It has been an eventful week discussing economy and politics with you, and we're looking forward to another interesting new week, particularly as it is the month of October, the month of Nigeria's independence anniversary. Thank you to all our viewers for being part of us, and it's been nice, and wishing you a wonderful weekend. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day. And for our viewers, the last edition of our market review is coming up 10 a.m. Don't want to leave. I'd like you to stay tuned and join us. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.